All right, everyone. Welcome to the West Coast Preps podcast. We're doing something a little different today. Usually, we've been having just one person on 10-minute segments, but today we're doing a debate style podcast. It's going to be Chris representing the Sacramento region, and Jack going to be representing the Bay Area with his awful, awful hoodie that he has on.
It's Super Bowl week. It's Super Bowl week. We're in the Bay Area, Greg. You gotta let this one ride.
No, anyways, we'll move on. They're going to get 1 minute each to debate or give their side on why their team should win in this matchup. I have 10 matchups, five boys, five girls that I've made up and sent to them. They have their notes, they're ready to go. And then I will decide who is the winner of that debate in each matchup. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah, can we also ask these coaches to please set these matchups too? Like just and ask this, yeah, you have to make sure that these happen no matter what in the NorCal playoffs. Because I mean, just thinking about them has my mouth foaming.
Yeah, as fun as it is to debate, like let's see these in November, December.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be fun for sure. All right, we'll start off with the boys. I think the girls' matchups are much more fun, to be honest. So we're going to do that second and last. But the boys will go first this time. The first matchup, Chris, you'll defend Monterey Trail, and Jack, you will defend De La Salle. Chris, go ahead and you start this one.
Yeah, I know Monterey Trail kind of had a crazy loss last night, right? 106 to 101, but it's almost impossible to win every game. Even Salesian and De La Salle haven't, right? Even these SoCal powers haven't. But Monterey Trail is 24-3, their best season in school history. And they've got the best player, I would say, in Northern California, just production wise and impact wise. You've got Brandon Gibson, 6'3, had 51 points a week and a half ago. Even Jack in the Bay Area is texting me about that. You've got him, a deep team, and I think they match up well with De La Salle. They can don't make De La Salle run, and that's De La Salle is going to want to slow it down and grind it out. But I think Monterey Trail can make a run, but Monterey Trail can also play slow. They've got the depth, the length to give De La Salle a lot of problems, and the guard play that matches up, and then the bench. I think Monterey Trail's bench is deeper, and they've got the best player on the court. I mean, Alec Blair's pretty dang good too, but Brandon Gibson right now is looking like a player of the year in every sense. And 24-3, they beat Sacramento. They just put up 98 on Laguna, won by 42. They beat Camp Lindo by 22. They've got a heck of a resume, and they can
That's
shoot.
You're done. That's a minute for you. I just so you guys know, I'm going to cut you off at a minute.
Perfect.
Time. So you guys are done at 1 minute. So that is Chris's take. Now we go Jack defending De La Salle.
Yeah, Chris, I'm not going to dispute the fact that I think that Monterey Trail would have the best player in this game. But if you were to rank the top 10 players in this game, I think De La Salle would have players 2 through 5, maybe 2 through 4, but confidently those next couple. And you mentioned it, Alec Blair has been phenomenal on both ends for the Spartans. Leo Ricketts has been a key scorer for De La Salle when Blair is blanketed by opposing defenses in a really tough league, and Leo Ricketts has been able to get his. And then the foreign aspect, much like a Greg Popovich type Spurs, De La Salle reaches over the pond, and Braddock Kjelsvig, the Eastern European, has been a monster both on the boards and down low scoring. So De La Salle, I think, has the edge in this matchup because when they can lock up Monterey Trail with the depth and they can play on the perimeters, they can run. And I think it's a team that uses speed and size to its great advantage, and it's showed this year in the gauntlet of the EBAL.
All right. Jack only used 57 seconds there. It's a bold strategy there, Con.
If I had gone into another point, I might have gone over, and you can't go over. Price is right.
You know, Jack has a great point on the better players on the 2 through 5 area. I think Jack is going to win this one. And De La Salle will take that matchup if we do get that in the NorCals. The next one, we're going to start with Jack. It's Salesian versus Modesto Christian. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so Salesian's been a really interesting case this year because all that they've done is win, and they've beat all the other top 4 or 5 teams in the Bay Area that they've played against. Most of them were early in the season, yes, but Salesian's taking care of business in its league schedule and in its later non-league schedule to the point where there's no way you can justify taking them out of that number 1 spot in the Bay Area. Aaron Clater is a dog, a really great scorer, an elite shooter. So this team, not only can they beat you with scoring, though, the team defense Salesian plays is incredible. They routinely hold teams under 45, in the 40-point range, and will just wear you down, make you use the entire shot clock. And I think they don't have the recent, sexier wins, like Reardon just dismantled Mitty the other night. And Granada had that stretch kind of in later January where they were the hot stuff in the Bay Area. It's like people kind of forgot about Salesian, but Salesian's wins in the early part of the year are not devalued to me just because they were that. They haven't shown me anything that deserves to take them from that top spot. And I think if it came down to it with Modesto Christian, I got Salesian winning by 7 to 12 points.
That was a perfect 1 minute response there from Jack. Now we head to Chris to defend Modesto Christian.
Yeah, what Jack just said about Salesian being an interesting case study applies to Modesto Christian, right? They're 24-3. They've had a lot of booming nights, but they've also had a couple of tough nights as well. They just had a tough one the other night against Oakland, but this team at full strength, I think they're finally getting that chemistry together in a lot of senses, a lot of transfers. They've got that talent. They've made a lot of postseason runs and been here before, right? They were the NorCal Open Division qualifier in 2022 last year, made a deep run again, went to the Open Division again, and they're battle tested. They played great teams of late. They've got the guard play. Gavin Sykes, averaging over 20 a game. Miles Jones keeps having big games. And also you've got guys like Jeremiah Bernard, a Division I football kid that's just playing out of his mind in terms of athleticism, toughness. And I think Modesto Christian, the way it's battle tested at full strength and everything clicking, I don't really know if there's teams that could beat them, but it's as long as everybody clicks.
Chris going with the 57-second debate there. But you know what? I think I'm going to go with Chris. I'm not sure Jack really gave the points that he deserved, that Salesian deserves, I should say.
But that actually, you picking against Salesian in this case perfectly illustrates my point about Salesian. So I'll take that.
That is fair. Salesian, for some reason, continues to be the underdog. I'm going to take Modesto Christian. So 1-1 tie right now as we head to the third matchup. It's a really fun one, in my opinion. Rockland versus Granada. We'll go back to Chris to start off with this.
Man, I've been dreaming of this matchup all night. But Rockland won its first 23 games, and against great teams too. You think both teams playing great leagues, right? Granada, the EBAL, SFL for Rockland. I don't think there's two stronger leagues in Northern California than those two, top to bottom. But Rockland 25-2. They've just clinched another league crown. They've got the size, they got the depth, and I think they really do have the guards to really shut Granada down, right? From the 4 and 5 and 6 spots going down the bench with Kenny Rice, Kanaya Marasco, Josiah Andrews can all defend and score at a high level. And I would say they've probably got the number one player in this game, a Division I kid, Mark Lavernop Jr., 6'7", 6'8", can hit the 3,000 point scorer. They're battle tested 25-2, and Steve Taylor's a legendary coach that's at 500 career wins. Give me Rockland in this matchup. A close one that might go to overtime, but give me Rockland with that depth, size, and the experience and toughness at the 1 through 5 spots in the depth.
I will say that was a great argument there from Chris. Now we head to Jack to head to my alumni, Granada.
Yeah, I'm arguing on behalf of the alumni, so don't be too biased for Granada. But I think I have a great point here because, one, I'm going to start off with Navon Long. He's been an elite player for Granada for the last few years and has really even blossomed even more in his senior season. We also have, Chris, you mentioned the size of some of those Rockland players. We've got Cortevious Taylor coming in at 6'5", 230, and just a beast on both ends. So Granada has the skill and it has the depth. They're 22-2. Their only loss in the league came to De La Salle, and even that was a close game, closer than even the score would indicate. So Granada has been playing with everybody. They were hot in the EBAL. It's another one of these teams that plays a gauntlet of a schedule. And despite the toughness of their strength of schedule, they show time and time again that they're tough defensively, can score in multiple ways, can score on the wings. You got guys like Lennon Lamba, who's a great shooter. Marco Wild can score in multiple ways. So the depth of Granada, I think, matches up well with Rockland. And the length and the size of Granada, I think, makes them a real problem on defense to get their hands in the passing lanes and create offense from defense.
That was a perfect 1 minute response there from Jack. I'm torn on this one, honestly. I really don't know which way to go. Parts of me want to go with Rockland because of that hot start that they had. And they're a league winner. Granada's not a league winner. It doesn't seem like they will be. At least not in the regular season, they weren't. I'm going to lean Chris. 2-1 Sacramento at this point. Jack is just...
I hope these games happen. I hope Salesian plays Modesto Christian. I hope Granada plays Rockland.
We can all hope that these games happen.
But right now, it's all talk.
At this point, I would say Jack is the favorite for these final two matchups. The next one we're going to go to is Jesuit versus Reardon. Jack, You get to go and start with Reardon.
Well, this is an easy one for me because I just saw these guys play the best game of their season on Tuesday night at the Crusader Dome in San Francisco, and a rematch against Midi. And now Reardon won the first game against Midi by 2 in overtime, and everyone kind of thought Midi was going to get theirs back because it's been 22 years since Reardon has swept Midi, but Reardon came out firing and really exhibited how high their ceiling is when they're playing like that. If they shoot the ball like they did, they can win the Open State title. Now they're not going to shoot the ball like that every night, but they're shooting with a lot of confidence right now. They scored 76 points, put up 46 in the first half. Zion Sensley is one of the best players in the Bay Area. Andrew Hillman is an incredible sophomore who's been rising up all kinds of rankings. He'll be a Power 5 guy. Jasir Rencher, I wrote a profile on him this morning, kind of a role player, a two-way guy who gives them a great option scoring when Sensley's double or triple teamed and is probably the best defender on the team. And I could name a bunch more guys in this depth chart for Reardon who are clicking at the right time. They're finally healthy. They're probably going to take over that number 3 spot in the Bay Area this week outside of Salesian and De La Salle. And this is a team that's firing on all cylinders.
Alrighty. Chris, you have a tough matchup here to try and defend against Reardon, but you have Jesuit. Go ahead.
I agree. I don't think there's a team more talented top to bottom than Reardon with all those kids. I don't think anybody can argue that. But we go back to, I need to see Reardon make a deep run in the postseason to believe it and win this kind of high stakes game when it matters right now, right? It's February. We're going like this is February. Reardon's had some early exits these last couple of years. Sure, they did win CCS 2 years ago, but what happened after? Didn't go as far as they would like last year, had the suspensions, lost at Granada. They lost that home game. And I think Jesuit right now, what they just showed, the defense, they allowed Sheldon to 39 points, and that was without Cole Epperson, their 6'7" D1 kid playing in that game. What they did, they're shooting. They've won 8 straight. They can shoot. They can defend. Their ball movement. I don't know if there's a more selfless team than Jesuit right now. Their point guard, Kevin Hopt, is as dynamic as they come. He's got a Long Beach State offer as well. I think Jesuit with its defense, the way it's playing recently, and just its ability to rise in these big situations without its best player out there gives it the edge when he returns.
I will say, interesting strategy to say Reardon has the most talent. Just by default, I now have to go with Reardon. A fatal mistake there by Christian.
I mean, but how do you argue that?
Without that admission, it wasn't. This was an uphill battle for Chris.
Yeah, there's no way I can argue that Reardon doesn't have the most talent.
And the logical fallacy of using previous years. Let's make sure that's stripped from the record.
Hey, we got to see him do it to believe it.
We're moving on. There were no longer
years and years before I was on the beat.
2-2 Bay Area and Sac is tied going to the final matchup that we have. It's Capital Christian versus Branson. I will say the Bay Area is probably favored here, so I'm going to let Chris get the first impression. Go ahead and defend Capital Christian.
Well, Capital Christian now is a much different team than a month ago. They've got their full roster intact, and they are not losing. They have won over 10 games in a row, 11 actually now. They just crushed Sacramento by 23 last week. They've got the guard play. Jalen Valdez is a D1 offer. CJ Willenberg can play at that next level inside. You've got Miles Wiggins, who's a sophomore, who's got a D1 offer. But then they just added 2 transfers eligible, 6'5", Jepte Tambala, 6'6", Danny Panda. They're athletic. They match up with that quickness of Branson, right? That's 2 extra long bodies they've got that are athletic. They're studs. You get those guys on the open floor, Capital Christian is almost unstoppable. And I don't think that there's a team hotter in Northern California right now over these last 2 to 3 weeks, especially considering the schedule that they've played, than Capital Christian. Winners of 11 straight, beating Sacramento by 23, and they've got all the transfers eligible and chemistry clicking with already great guard play and a great coach.
Alrighty, that was a very good start for the Sacramento teams. Jack, bring it home for the Bay Area. Defend Branson.
Branson's kind of the inverse of Salesian. They had a couple losses in the Bay Area in the early part of the year, and they've rectified those with being one of the most hot and high-flying, entertaining, athletic teams in the Bay in the entire state of California over the following 6 weeks. You got Jace Butler, you got Smitri Carr, Finley Keefe, Joaquin Aguillon, and that's leaving out a number of impact players for Branson. Those are just the top 4 guys who are really their ballers. And when I watch Branson, I've seen them a couple times this year. The one thing that jumps out at me is this team reminds me of the 2012, 2013 Miami Heat, where they're just so physical and fast. And you think whenever they're on the break coming down the floor, someone's just going to throw a lob to someone else from the half court region, and it's going to be an absolute cash bucket. So, Branson, I got reared in on the brain because they play kind of similarly above the rim and athletically. But Jace Butler, Illinois commit. Smitri Carr, he's going to be a Power 5 guy. Aguillon's going to go play college hoops, as is Finley Keefe. These guys are physically dominant. They've been refining their tools in the Marin County Athletic League, and they're about to go on a run.
Interesting take from Jack. Messed up their name, but got me with the 2012-2013 Heat. It's going to come down to, Chris, who's winning the Super Bowl this week?
Chiefs.
Wrong answer. We can't root for Pat Mahomes. Jack.
I can't believe Greg would ever side with the Niners.
It's a real catch-22 for Greg.
It really is. Branson wins that one. The Bay Area wins the boys. And we move on to the girls. Just a fatal mistake. All you had to do was know that I'm a Brady fan and Mahomes can't win.
You know, I feel like if I would have said the Niners, Greg still would have given it to Branson.
Possibility.
That's true. Probably because I won it between the lines, between the whistles.
You just will never know. It will be a mystery forever. All right, I'm going to go backwards this time from the groups that I sent you. We're going to end with what I think is the best matchup on this list. But we'll start with a great one in the first place. Whitney versus Bishop O'Dowd. Jack, go ahead and you start this one since you are the defending champ right now.
Well, since you threw that curveball at me, I'm going to have Chris go first so I can pull up my Bishop O'Dowd notes.
Wow. Just a mistake here.
No, Jack's got to go first.
That was an unforced error.
Just scroll down.
Well, it's on a different tab.
Wow. It's just a brutal start. If you don't win this matchup, I swear. Jack, whenever you're ready.
All right. Bishop O'Dowd, is it sorry, I'm on the wrong page here. You got to edit this out, Greg.
My goodness.
Don't edit it out.
We don't edit here. So
yeah. you got to edit this out. Bishop O'Dowd lost their 5th game of the year on January 15th to Mitty, which is hardly a black eye, right? Mitty's one of the better high school basketball teams that we've ever seen in the state of California. And since then, all that they've done is win 12 in a row and win the vast majority of those games in dominant fashion in the East Bay. Their average margin of victory over these last three weeks or so is around 45 points. So Bishop O'Dowd is a team that'll lock you down on defense. They routinely keep teams under 30 points. They had a 71-2 win over San Leandro a couple weeks ago on January 26th, and their defense has been absolutely suffocating. They get a lot of steals, a lot of turnovers, and they are going to force you to use the entire shot clock and miss shots on offense. It's a high-flying team that can really shoot the three, better than a lot of girls' teams I've seen.
All righty, Chris. I think you have a major lead going into this one. Go ahead and defend Whitney.
Yeah, I haven't seen a more selfless team than them. Sydney Gatting, a coach. She schedules tough every year, and that's going to help them even more. I think especially their league is tougher. I know you've got Piedmont in that league, but top to bottom, the SFL is stronger with Folsom, Oak Ridge, Rockland, Del Oro, you name it. Every team's pretty much top 20 in NorCal on that list. But you've got the top player in this game too. Harper Peterson, Stanford signee, 4-star prospect. She's an assist machine. She's 6'3", 6'4", runs the floor, and she gets everybody involved. They can shoot. Sammy Schooler is a great defender. A D1 track commit too. But you've got a tenacious rebounder who's going to dominate the glass and Tylee Kitchen. There's nobody, even teams ranked ahead of him, that's out-rebounded her. Bigger girls are not out-rebounding her. She had, 10, 12 rebounds the other night, and she's also a D1 softball commit to San Diego State. So you're noticing these multi-sport people as well. It's just kind of an extra shout-out I want to put in there. But Whitney's as selfless as it comes. They move well. They've got the best player in the court, and they're going to rebound, which is huge, and defend at this time of year. So I think that gives Whitney the edge over Bishop O'Dowd.
Yeah, that was an easy win. Nothing against Bishop O'Dowd. Just had a terrible lawyer in this one. So the decision goes to Whitney.
An inexplicable curveball from Greg to start the girls segment, but
well, you got to be prepared for anything when it comes to me. Sacramento leads 1-0. Oak Ridge versus Acalanes. Chris, go ahead and start because I'm sure Jack's not prepared for this one either.
I'm super prepared right now.
Acalanes also is not at full strength because Sophie Chin has not played recently. She's been out, and I know they've got talent, but that's a huge loss in this game with Oak Ridge, who's already deep. They've got D1 girls. They bring back pretty much every first-team all-league selection last year. Livy Jurgensen's got, I'm counting, 8 D1 offers. She's a star. Jessica Cornell is another star. She's scoring big every game. Same with Love Jorgensen. And their schedule, they've crushed Whitney already this year. They've crushed Rockland. They've crushed Del Oro. They've rolled past Intercom, Monterey Trail, Antelope. Their non-league schedule, their league schedule is huge. Every night they're playing great teams and they're winning. Besides when they play Folsom, they are winning and they are winning big. They're talented. They've got the top girls in this matchup. I don't see any way how Oak Ridge goes down.
All righty, Chris. Even with Leo trying to come in and distract you, you still
this whole time back here.
That's a deduction.
That's a positive.
I'm not getting distracted by it.
Jack gets a deduction for trying to get a deduction out of Chris. This is unreal performance by
That's why Greg and I are the OGs.
Jack, defend Akalani's.
Well, Chris, I'm glad you brought up Sophie Chin's availability because I was going to start this by saying that in this hypothetical matchup, in a vacuum, Akalani's is completely healthy. And that especially means because Sophie Chin is still on the table to be ready for them for the postseason. So when you look at Akalani's tail of the juniors, one of the most impressive things about this 23-4 Akalani's team is that they are pretty much without senior impact throughout the roster. So Sophie Chin's a junior. Paris Locke-Laley is a junior. She's one of the better players in the Bay Area. They just celebrated their coach going over 600 career wins. This is a team that's red hot. They've dominated their league. They haven't quite had the head-to-heads. They lost head-to-head to Cardinal Newman earlier in the year. But Locke-Laley is such an elite scorer. They have such a good defensive presence that Akalani's, I think, takes this one against any of their Sacramento counterparts.
I will say Chris came out hot, attacking Akalani's with their star player being out. And I think he gets credit for that. Plus the distraction of his dog Leo coming in. Chris has a 2-0 lead over Jack in the Bay Area.
I'm dialed in.
It's going to be a hell of a story.
It's a dominant performance.
I'm also wondering how Jack is saying Akalani's would beat any of the Sacramento counterparts. He doesn't even know what's coming.
Wow. I like the fire Chris has had. He didn't have this in the boys matchup for sure. All of a sudden, he's turned things up a notch. I want Chris to start again. I like what I see from him right now. McClatchy versus Carondelet. Here we go.
Well, I've already talked to San Ramon Valley's coaches about this team before, too, and McClatchy dominated them over the summer. McClatchy's hot. They've won 14 straight. They beat Monterey Trail by 40 and by 22. Grant by 35. Oakland Tech by 13. They've got Nina Kane, also the best player in this game. Their guard matchups are great. Their forward matchups are great. There's not a spot where McClatchy's not going to win this game, and dominating every great team that they've really faced on the schedule. Also dominating San Ramon Valley and San Ramon Valley's coaches and opposing coaches raving about them. That's all I need to know. And these are from teams that beat Carondelet too, that maybe some people on our staff have seen, like Greg saw last week or 2 weeks ago, right? Sometime in this season when Greg saw that, but McClatchy was already great last year. They're a better team than Carondelet this year, a better resume. Give me McClatchy. Easy.
Chris is dominating right now. Jack, you need something, pull something out of your hat right now just to keep yourself alive. Go ahead.
Okay, what I'm going to say about Carondelet is it's pretty simple. If one, Midi, who are already discounting from this entire debate, which might I add is kind of unfair, and two, San Ramon Valley. If those two teams didn't exist, Carondelet would be the best team in the Bay Area. All they've done in the last 4 weeks is win, besides that loss to San Ramon Valley, which was a respectable loss, a 7-point loss in league. In a rivalry game like that, you can live with that loss to the number 2 team as the number 3 team. 5 times in the last 3 weeks, Carondelet has scored over 70 points, 3 of those being over 80 points. And in girls basketball games, that is an insanely high total. So this team can flat out score against anyone. They can shoot the lights out. I think a lot of their offense has to do with how intense they are on defense, that full court press, that kind of defense in the half court where they force teams out to the perimeter to make shots that a lot of teams are incapable of making on a consistent basis. I think that's why Carondelet's been so successful against any Bay Area opponent not named San Ramon Valley.
That was a pretty good debate there by Jack. I'm not going to lie. Carondelet takes it by a slim margin, and Bay Area.
I love how we're playing the what-if game, though. If Midi and San Ramon Valley weren't in the Bay Area, then Carondelet's the best team. Are we also forgetting some other teams in the Bay Area that are pretty good?
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, Carondelet's my number 3. Has been for weeks. They haven't done anything to get unseated from that. Their only loss came to the number 2. Also, Chris, I wouldn't be arguing about not having Midi in this debate because I was just taking my main soldier here in Midi out of this girls debate.
Midi's not a high school team. They're
We're
too good.
moving on. You guys are getting out of control at this point.
Always.
St. Mary's versus Cardinal Newman. Jack, go ahead and get us started with Cardinal Newman.
Cardinal Newman, it's the Kate Schatz show. She is phenomenal. Just a junior, reached the 1,000-point mark earlier in this season. She's on her way to the 1,500, 1,600 range for her career if she stays healthy and keeps playing the way she's playing. She is dominating the North Bay, and it's a county, Greg. I talked to you about this a few weeks ago. The Sonoma County is not a girls or boys basketball hotbed. We see a lot of teams coming out of more so the East Bay and the South Bay, but Cardinal Newman has long been a stalwart, and this is a team who's ranked nationally to the north part of the top 25 and ranked in the top 10 or so in the state. And Cardinal Newman's going to have every opportunity to face Carondelet, face SRV in that open division in a few weeks. And if Kate Schatz is on, they can really be a team that wins that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say that Cardinal Newman would have a chance against a midi because, like you said, Chris, no one would. But if they were to face SRV or Carondelet or Akalani, one of those other top 5 teams, there's definitely a huge chance that Cardinal Newman would come out on top because Kate Schatz is so good and because she attracts so much defensive attention. The gravity of her on offense allows her teammates to be open a lot. So Cardinal Newman's really strong.
All righty, Chris. You can clinch it for Sacramento right now. Go ahead.
If you're already arguing about Cardinal Newman being so good, then how come they couldn't beat St. Mary's earlier this season? St. Mary's won by 8 without their full roster intact. They've added transfers that are now eligible, and they're dominating, right? They're freaking dominating. They got a freshman in Corey Rogers, who's the next national prospect there. Not to mention a 5-star top 10 prospect in America in Jordan Lee, signed with Texas, averaging over 25 a game. And Greg even said last week, this girl's unbelievable. This team's unbelievable. They've already beat Cardinal Newman, not at full strength. Now they are. They've got everybody on this team. St. Mary's wins, and they're going to win big this time too. I don't even need a minute to argue this. I've got everything right there.
The defense rests. It's not fair to give us a head-to-head that's already happened.
Wow. I was going to try and keep this interesting and give Bay Area the win, but I can't.
I was like, if there's any way Chris maybe forgot that they actually played.
Oh no, I'm always prepared, man. Don't ever underestimate that. It's the dog in me.
If they had a rematch, though, don't ever count out Kate Schatz and Cardinal Newman. That's what I'm saying.
Don't ever count out St. Mary's, who's already beat them.
St. Mary's beat a lot of Bay Area teams.
Yeah, besides Midi, I think they beat all of them.
All right, we're moving on. Folsom versus SRV is the final matchup. It means nothing on the girls' side, but it's still an incredible game. Jack, I feel bad for you at this point, so go ahead and start with SRV.
Don't feel bad for me. I got the boys win under my belt. We're even. I'll dive into SRV. This is a team that has family ties for Chris, and I can say firmly that without Midi being in the Bay Area, SRV would likely be that top dog coming out of the open for the Bay Area, representing that, and even when they head to the NorCal playoffs. So SRV is phenomenal. You got Sophia Bose, who's a scorer at all levels. She's going to Cal. She can get inside the paint. She can hit the mid-range. Gosh, she is lethal in the mid-range, making those post moves, hitting those turnarounds, using the backboard to her advantage, and she can shoot the 3. Sierra Chambers is an elite guard who I really think the offense, kind of the ecosystem of the offense runs through her, right? She's not going to have the same point totals that Sophia Bose or Avery Knapp has, but she's bringing the ball up the floor. She's facilitating things. I think she's kind of the beating heart of that offense, even if Sophia Bose is the brain, right? And then I mentioned Avery Knapp. She's the size. She's got a lot of height. She's an elite rebounder, and she gives San Ramon Valley a fighting chance inside against a huge team like Midi to just be respectable, grab rebounds, and create a physically imposing game. So San Ramon Valley at 3 different parts of the game is like,
you're done.
Sorry.
I messed up and I tried to give him an extra 5 seconds and he still kept going. That was 1:10 right there. I apologize, Chris. Now you get 1:10.
Sorry, I have so many good things to say about our friends over at San Ramon Valley.
He's still trying to butter me up right now. Unreal. Go ahead, Chris. Defend Folsom.
San Ramon Valley's great. There's no question about it. But they've even told me, their coaches have told me Folsom's a different. Folsom's in that elite level with St. Mary's. And then obviously Midi's at a different level. But it's Midi and then St. Mary's and Folsom. And then San Ramon Valley is right here. And that's the way it is. Folsom's beat every great team known to mankind that they've played so far, right? They've only lost to really out-of-region foes. They beat McClatchy by 7. Oak Ridge, Just a couple spots below them in the rankings by 38 and 36. Whitney by 55 points. And they've got all these divisional players. They've got an All-American in Cameron Maffu, a top 100 player who's going to Cal, who is just effortless out there. It's as smooth of a game as it can be. You've got Ella Uriarte, who's also a D1 commit. I really don't need a minute for this. They've beaten everybody huge. They've beaten the Oak Ridges by 30-plus points each time, crushed Whitney every single time. What more do I need to say? They've already been in the Open Division in past years. They're going to be in the Open Division again. San Ramon Valley hasn't. They're defending section champs in D1. Folsom wins this game. It's not even a question for me.
Chris, my one question to you, my rebuttal, I guess, would be, do you think coach is lying, try and play that underdog mentality when telling you that Folsom is a better team?
No, because they've also told me going into games when they're the better team.
Coach Cristiano told me they'd beat Folsom if we're just playing the blind hearsay game here. He told me they'd beat Folsom by 30.
Wow. Okay. That's unique. That's definitely a lie.
I'm grasping at straws here on the girls' side.
Wow.
Wow. Jack threw a Hail Mary and it went out.
You just conceded defeat.
I guess we're just going to have to see who will decide this. Who's the NorCal representative in the Open Division? I guess that's the only way we'll be able to settle this debate.
I mean, everybody knows that's Mitty.
Oh, where's Mitty?
They're playing college basketball, but they're allowed to play high school this year. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
My note page is gone. This has gone off the rails. Chris,
and that looked like the end of some of those ESPN shows where you're just throwing the stuff in the air, man. The show's over.
Yeah, this show's over.
Like around the horn.
Exactly.
Great. Do you want to give me a minute to talk about Mitty?
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Mitty deserves it.
Perhaps the best I almost said college. That's a Freudian slip. Perhaps the best high school basketball team the Bay Area has seen. Morgan Shelley's an All-American. McKenna Lichko is the best sophomore in America. She just hit 1,000 points halfway through her sophomore season. I'd be remiss to talk about Bay Area girls basketball and not mention Mitty, who is steamrolling their way through on their way to another Open Division state championship berth. And I think this year they get Etowanda, whoever comes out of the SoCal bracket, and they hang that banner. They win that last game. And I think Sue Phillips, when it's all said and done, looks at this team and says this was her best team ever.
And she's coached a lot of great teams, so that says a lot.
Look at that. That makes an incredible comeback, and the Bay Area wins the whole thing. Unreal comeback.
As we should with Mitty.
Chris Jackson somehow loses this despite winning 6 out of 4 of the matchups, but Mitty somehow takes it all because we all know that's what's going to happen.
Oh, easily. Yeah. That ain't an argument on my side.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming on to the West Coast Preps podcast. That is it for this edition of the podcast. Make sure you go read all their stuff on westcoastpreps.com and subscribe to make sure you can read all of the content that comes out. Thank you, guys.